First time we did it, we climbed with the bag, and it was heinous. And then the second time, Jem hauled, and so it was much easier.
I mean, that's the kind of haul.
Yeah.
If you need to. So.
Climb with 2 ropes, I imagine. I'm not sure how overhung or how windy it is, but yeah, all we kind of need is a ton of quick draws, 18 I believe, I've been told, and 2 ropes, and harness and shoes.
Start off with just your name and surname.
Cool, I'm Calrin Curtis. That's my name and surname. I thought I don't know, should I include my middle name? Like, I don't know, that sounds so like, that's my name. For the last, at least like 6 or 7 years or so, it's like trying to do the hardest boulders I can. You know, the technique that involves flashing or onsighting or the fear aspect, although some boulders I've done are fucking scary. Edit that out, are we doing swear words? Anyway. Onsighting newborn would be an incredible sort of well-rounded, like the sort of closing out of doing something, not necessarily like the hardest moves that I could do, but being able to overcome like my fear in the moments, like when I'm really high up and trying to do hard moves, as well as being able to do something first go.
If I go first, link in the first 2, then I'll meet the 28 pitch.
Okay, cool. And then we just alternate it.
And we can just alternate, but then I can also, like, if one of us aren't feeling it, we can be like, hey, I'm not feeling this pitch. Are you feeling better right now?
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Kyle and I have gone back probably since day 1 or 2 from first competitions we did in Recounting to, I mean, competing like last year, December, against each other. And between those 2 moments, we've climbed outside, we've done everything, which is pretty cool. So been a good friend of mine since the beginning. My name is Christopher Cosser. I'm a professional climber. Going for an Onsight wasn't my idea. That was Calrin. I was like, yeah, dude, let's just go climb it. And he's like, we should Onsight it. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Sport climbing evolved from trad climbing, so you went from trad climbing to sport climbing. And then there was a little window where sport climbing was always single pitch routes on the ground. And then there was suddenly this eye of like, what can you do if you can take bolts into like astonishingly remote places and climb outrageous faces? In the 1990s who I lived with in America called Todd Skinner. And Todd Skinner did the first free ascent of El Cap via a route called Freerider with a guy called Paul Piana in the 1990s when I was living in the States. Then he went over to Trango Tower in Pakistan and opened a multi-pitch bolted route there that looked absolutely mind-blowing and was graded like 13B, which is 38A. And in those remote Karakoram valleys, that was completely unheard of. It was like one of the hardest things around. And then I spent that time in America, and when I came back from the States, I started climbing and looking for harder stuff. And then at that time, there was a route that was opened in the Western Cape called Oceans of Fear, which was a mix between bolted routes and mixed and trad. And it had only bolts on the hard moves. Then at that time, we were bolting a route out the Hex, and Sean had this idea of bolting this massive wall at Yellowwood.
Obviously, you've got, the conditions, obviously it goes in the sun at midday.
Yeah,
you've you've got to climb this other upper pitches in the sun. So you want to maybe an overcast, nice, cool day, you know, a breeze, a bit of wind and that, you know? That would be the best.
Go for it now, quickly.
Hello!
I was pushed loud. All right, John, we'll see you now. God.
Why do you think it is that newborn is not a commonly climbed route?
It's an epic to do newborn. So I think quite a few guys are able to walk up the 2-3 hour hike to get to the base. And then I think some people are able to get some of the way up, but to bite the whole route off in one sitting is quite a thing. It's more akin to bouldering, maybe is more like perhaps sprinting, and long day like that is more akin to marathon running. So to have a skill set where you can marry like bouldering and big wall climbing and sprinting and marathon running is quite rare. It's got a very bouldery crux on it, which suits boulderers, but then it's got a long day out kind of ness to it, which suits very, very fit guys.
Morning.
Well, newborn started was obviously after John Fish and myself, we've been climbing quite a lot. You know, John was like, you know, one of the top climbers at the time, way ahead of his time, opened a lot of routes and everything. And he was overseas. He'd come back from a big alpine trip, I think in Chamonix and all of that. Bumped into him. And we started chatting about, you know, the development and some harder stuff and everything. And spoke to the guys about the sport climbing. You know, we were thinking about the Cedar, but it was quite a sensitive area. We were looking at Newborn. It was a traditional area. And I went and did a recce, went and looked up, and I thought, like, geez, this will be the next level, you know, pushing it on the big mountains, trying to find a wall where the guys, the traditional guys, would not be able to climb, you know, with traditional gear. It will have to be bolted.
My man. It's climbing sick. Yo, my hands are numbing out a bit, man.
Yeah, it's a little chilly.
But I'm feeling good. Good. Let's go. I've been told I hope this doesn't cancel the Onsight, but that the sort of difficulty of newborn is in the individual moves and not so much in the endurance. Apparently there's good rests in between the cruxes, which I am banking on because I generally, like I've kind of mentioned, I am more of a boulderer, although I like to consider myself as multidisciplinary. I don't think I have a lot of good natural endurance. I grew up sport climbing in Joburg, and I definitely love it, but if I look at the top sport grades that I've climbed, they're all like very cruxy, short climbs. Full on for cramping, dude. Pitch 5 was such a long pitch. It's like kind of the longest, most endurance heavy pitch on the wall, and I'd been warned about before by Liam, and it really was quite a slow pitch. There's like a lot of like sort of cruxes and potential places where you could rest, and I took that time and I really did like give it the best effort I could, and I fell right on the last bolt before the chains, and just that feeling of having to do the whole thing again, and the fact that I'd blown it. I thought that if I could get to the halfway ledge, and if Chris sent the crux pitch, that it kind of motivated me to potentially be on for onsighting it with him. But yeah, also there was a sense of relief of kind of like, okay, each pitch before that was quite hectic, and I was, really dialed in and really nervous of messing up, and that like kind of pressure was relieved.
We were sport climbers unaware of what was going to go down, and I was hanging on the end of the rope, dangling. I mean, we had head torches out, and it was late afternoon. You could see the cars on the mountain pass going below, and I was just like, what the hell are we doing here? We're like completely out of our depth, So, Jesus, we've got to make a plan to get off this wall. We're only halfway down. We're still going to get to the bottom. Let's just put the anchors in and get off this wall. And on the way down, I mean, obviously we were going through big roofs, big overhangs. We had to swing back in, but we didn't want to put bolts in where we never knew, that we're not going to be able to clip and all that. So we were swinging, hooking and all that other stuff, trying to get to the anchor so we could put the anchors in and pull the ropes and then obviously get off that wall. I mean, I almost wrapped off the end of my rope. I mean, in the dark. I mean, the weather was like shocking. I said, I tied a knot onto the end. We were on figure of eights. Those days was figure of eights and not Gregory's. And I got stuck. I mean, and Nick never had a plastic loop. We never had plastic loop. We're not traditional climbers. We had to sport climb. Easy. Put bolts in. It's not going to be a problem. Well, let me tell you, I had to pull.
It's fun.
I had to pull up 70 meters hand over hand, 6 inches at a time, taking the rope in, tying around my rope, pulling up, taking a bit of slack on the figure to get to the top where I could touch the wall and then start again and then kick, and eventually get down. Got to the point, drilled the anchor, said to Nick, okay, Opile, you on, whatever. And it took like 40 minutes and Nick wasn't anywhere. And I saw the torch in the dark, like all over the place, whatever. And I was going like, Nick, like shouting, what's going on, man? What's going on? Come on, hurry up, you got to get off this wall. Now it's like, like 7 o'clock at night, and it's like, anyway, Nick eventually gets down, okay, to the bottom. But what had happened was he was up there with a figure of 8, and with the long hair that he had, the ponytail that he was growing, he was bending down trying to see where he was going, while he was rappelling in that. And the ponytail got pulled into the figure of 8, man, and got jammed solid. So now it's sitting on the rope. He can't give slack, to take slack. He can't get the ponytail out. Takes his little backpack off, whatever, takes the Swiss Army knife out and starts cutting at the hair without now I don't know what's going on, okay? Anyway, so he started cutting, he got halfway through the hair and whatever, and then obviously it ripped and it pulled the rest of the piece. So he actually scalped himself and pulled off a nice size of a plaster, with hair on it, Scalp, yeah. Wrapped it up in a piece of toilet paper, put it in the top of his bag, came down to the thing, whatever, and I turned around, I was saying, Nick, I was busy untying his knot, made him safe, pulling the rope, whatever, to get to the neck, and I turned around to look, and the headlights shone in his face. I saw these white teeth and these eyes, whatever, and it was just blood everywhere. And I said, "Jeez, man, what have you done?" And I looked, and there was this huge piece that had been ripped out of his head. He said, "How's it?" He said, "Bad." I said, "No, it's cool." Took some toilet paper, made a pad, put the beanie on, taped it up with some tape, and off he went.
No, not too bad, actually. It was just crushing it. I pumped out on that 26, unfortunately, but it's like it's high still. I think it's got Onsight.
As I started that pitch, I had a brief thought of man, this pole tag's on a really precarious small ledge, and I had no thoughts after that. I just was that looks pretty precarious, and just 2 draws in or 3. I mean, I just heard the sound of it falling, and it was the longest 3 seconds of my life. A million things went through my head. I thought that it was first of all going to hit the ground. I didn't know how high we were up. I thought the bag could break. I thought my loop could break. And the last thing that went through my head was, oh my gosh, I'm going to get pulled off the wall. So I managed to split second, be able to brace myself for that impact.
I was on the stance, just standard, belaying from above, and Cull spins the corner, and he looks at me and he goes, "Dude, we got a problem." And in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, he's either bailing or shit's hit the fan, and he's the whole bag fell. And I was like, whoo, so grateful. But then we got it back up, and it kind of sucked pulling the full 60, but we got the whole bag there, and it was chill.
We're trying to figure out how it didn't pull Cull. Only God will know that. We can't really see the crux pitch just yet, but it's 1 away still.
How would you feel if after all of this you weren't able to achieve the Onsight? Touch wood.
I mean, this is rock climbing. Shit happens. Going for an Onsight is, it's rolling dice and hoping you get lucky. Cruised up to pitch 8 and was feeling really good, but South African stone is cool adventure climbing. It's not very obvious. We don't have vertical cracks. So I got to the crux and I was trying to find holds. I grabbed a shallow 2-finger lock and was climbing around trying to spot things. And when it eventually came to me falling off, I got into an awkward position, knew I needed to move, and went for it, and unfortunately just undershot it. So I didn't think I did anything wrong, except for the fact I missed a hold. I didn't get to where I needed to. But when I did the pitch second attempt, I used the exact same beta. So that was kind of a cool moment to know that the intention and or intuition was correct, that I just needed to get a little bit more lucky.
Often I would try it and I'd climb to the halfway ledge and then just be so knackered I could never do that crux pitch kind of thing. And then the day when I did it I was climbing with Jimbo, and below us was Dave Burkett and Mary Jenner. Dave was at that time one of the top UK climbers, and he was pitched below us kind of thing. And we rested quite a while on that halfway ledge and we stashed water up there. And then I took quite a long break there, which is quite uncharacteristic. And I just thought I'd give it a go. And when I fluked through that pitch, I mean, it was amazing. And then when I was at that, after the first hard pitch, after the halfway ledge, I think pitch 8 or something like that, I realized, like, actually, maybe I can get this done.
The way I approach climbing now is very diligent. We go climbing for a reason. You don't just like waste attempts and mess yourself up. It's like every attempt counts. Every moment you're on the wall is like important.
The stuff that got me into climbing was watching progression, watching all these like cool climbing films of people climbing stuff in South Africa. And that's what made me want to climb. And I think it's inspired me and sustained me to like carry on climbing. And I want to have like a piece of that, or I want to contribute to that, and like get other people who are like really young and super psyched on climbing inspired by the cool climbing that South Africa has to offer. So man, like if I was younger and I saw a really cool, well-made film of Newborn, that would really inspire me. Just like I saw lots of cool videos of people climbing stuff in Rocklands, and that's what inspired me to come down here and climb there. So and to be honest, like if none of us get the Onsight, like if we get to the top, which I'm sure we have no doubt that we would, I think the only disappointment would come from like the fact that we've had a fucking team trying to film this Onsight and like all these interviews, and to have like let that down, like you guys down for a bit, that would be a bit sad. not scared. I mean, there's stuff you can get a bit unlucky with, and especially with insurance, and maybe my preparation could be better. But I would be like a bit sad if I messed up the onside because I wasn't like sure enough, or like I got a bit scared going to the move, and that's what caused the messing up of the onsides. Yeah, I'd be a bit disappointed. But if like, you know, if I really felt like I overcame the fear aspect and I just messed up some data, then I'll be fine.
Last chance to get redemption on that jugging.
I was tanked. After those first two pitches, jogging up, I was fucking tanked.
Just hope gravity's on your side. That's what I
Gravity's always on my side.
Dude, breakdancing. Guys, if you twerk.
And we said, like, you know, I was a bit bolshy and overconfident. I said, if anyone can do it, buy a bottle of whiskey if you can on-site it.